The Hanania Show is brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News Newspaper, the Middle East's leading English language publication, with print and online editions in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, France, Japan, Pakistan, England, and the United States. Listen to live radio every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern in Detroit, Washington, D.C., New York, and Ontario, Canada. Or watch the live broadcast on Facebook.com/Arab News. The Hanania Show is rebroadcast in Chicago at 12 noon on Thursday. For more information on the radio stations, live Facebook broadcast, and podcasts, visit ArabNews.com. And now, here's your host, columnist and U.S. Special Correspondent for Arab News, Ray Hanania.
It's April 20th, 2022. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to have a great show. We're broadcast every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on radio at WNZK AM 690 radio in Greater Detroit, including in parts of Ohio and Michigan, WDMV AM 700 in Washington, D.C., including in parts of Virginia and Maryland, WTOR AM 770 radio in Ontario, Canada, and we rebroadcast the show on Thursdays in Chicago at 12 noon on WNWI AM 1080. You can also listen to the radio show live at arabradio.us or watch the radio show at facebook.com/Arab News. We had a great lineup today. By the way, I also want to just say Ramadan Mubarak to the Muslim community here in America and across the Arab world. Happy Easter to all the Christians. They just had traditional Easter. They'll do Orthodox Easter this Sunday. And happy Passover to the Jewish community all over the world. In segment one, we're going to be talking with Nir Hasson, who is a writer at Haaretz newspaper, and also, I believe, at the Forward newspaper in the U.S. He's based in Jerusalem, and he'll help us understand what's happening at the Aqsa Mosque compound and the Haram al-Sharif, also known as the Temple Mount to Jewish listeners. What happened? What caused it? Hasson is a Haaretz journalist. He's been covering Jerusalem, and he's writing, by the way, a PhD dissertation at the Hebrew University on the Palestinian neighborhoods in East Jerusalem. He's also a researcher at the Truman Institute of the Hebrew University. Later on in segment two, we're going to be talking with State Representative Cyril Nichols of the 32nd Illinois District, who's introduced a law that designates Arabs as a minority in Illinois. And the designation adds the word Arab contractors to the state contract set-aside program. Now, it doesn't mean that we're a minority in the sense that, of all these different aspects that we often think of in civil rights, but it does identify us as Arabs as a minority in terms of people not getting contracts from the state of Illinois, not being recognized. And Representative Cyril Nichols will talk to us at the bottom of the hour. Right now, I want to welcome Nir Hasson to our radio show. Nir, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's late at night by you in Jerusalem, a beautiful city, but thank you for staying up and joining us to talk to our audience here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, now, I'd like to say that this is the first time that Jerusalem has been in the news, but it's not. This has been going on for years and years, and it seems like it's almost predictable. But what happened this past week? Because it's been a little confusing. Did the Israeli military and politicians start it? Did the Palestinian protesters start it? Haaretz is one of the newspapers in Israel that I really trust when it comes to information. What happened?
Right. As you say, it's not the first time that we saw those clashes and violence rising in Jerusalem, and we know for at least 5 or 6 years now that in every Ramadan there is a lot of tension in Jerusalem, especially focusing on Temple Mount, Al-Aqsa compound. What happened this time was Well, first of all, you have to know that compared to last year, this Ramadan in Jerusalem and in Palestine, Israel, is pretty calm. It's pretty, I mean, there's not much of violence. I want to remind you that last year we had like full-scale war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, and clashes all over Israel and Palestine. And this Ramadan we didn't have it. We had few terror attack in Israel, but in Jerusalem it was pretty calm. But there is a tension that is building during the Ramadan in Temple Mount around the issue of Jewish prayers that going on the Temple Mount in a religion visit. Like they are not coming as a tourist.
Right.
They come there as people who want to pray or to worship. And this group, which is pretty small group in the Israeli society, put a lot of pressure on the government and on the Israeli police to let them more freedom, to give them more freedom on the Temple Mount.
Now
and
we know this
cause of pressure there, and this is the background of what we saw in the last week.
And I know we know this happens all the time, and you know, Jewish people. Nobody's saying that Jewish people can't go there, but there's a process, I guess. There seems to have been an agreement for years where that because it's so tense, because we really don't have peace yet, we have to be very careful about how we do things. The last time that it erupted in a second intifada, when Ariel Sharon and police and soldiers went to the Temple Mount and declared, made a very big political statement. Was the group of Jewish people that wanted to go there to pray, was it kind of political or was it more religious?
Yes.
What was it?
Well, it's combined. In Temple Mount, we have the status quo. And the status quo says, since 1967, the status quo that accepted by the Israeli government says that Muslims have the right to visit and to pray and to worship in Temple Mount Al-Aqsa. Non-Muslim, included Jewish, do not have the right to pray. They have only the right to visit there. Only 3 hours a day, 3 or 4 hours a day, during morning and noon, and they cannot be free there. They cannot get into the mosque without the approval of the Waqf, the Muslim body that run the place, and this is the status quo. But the status quo on Temple Mount is changing all the time.
Right.
In 2000, as you said, when Ariel Sharon went there, it started the second Intifada, and for 3 years there was no visit at all for non-Muslim visitors. And in 2003, Israel opened the gate again and let Jews to get inside, but it's without permission of the Waqf. So the Waqf consider it as attacked on the mosque. They do not accept them as part of running the place.
Did they see it as a political statement that they did it without asking them?
They see it as an attack on the mosque. They see it as a move from Israel to try to push the Muslims out of Al-Aqsa.
And I don't want. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know when people listen, they go, "Oh, that doesn't seem fair that Jews can't go to the Temple Mount to pray without getting permission." But isn't it true that as a Christian or as a Muslim, we can't just go up to the Wailing Wall, can we? I can't go to the Wailing Wall.
You can go to the Wailing Wall
around it,
but
around.
You can reach to the wall, but you cannot pray there as a Christian.
Right.
Or you cannot go. If you're a Muslim, you cannot go to a church and ask for for praying there. Now,
Right.
the Temple Mount Al-Aqsa is a mosque for 1,400 years.
Yes.
And it's of course the most important religious and national Palestinian symbol, and we saw it all over and over again during history, that when Israel or the Zionist movement tried to push in and to change the status quo in Al-Aqsa, it's what happened is waves of violence, and blood can be split. Since 2003, Israel let Jews inside the Temple Mount. But one point that it's very important to know is that until about 20 years ago, it wasn't an issue in the Israeli society and between Israel and Palestinians. And the reason was that most of the Israelis, included the religious part of the Israeli society, didn't care a lot about Temple Mount, because there is a rabbinic ruling that say that Jews do not allowed to get inside Temple Mount. It's very complicated issues of the halakha of the.
But there was as you point out, there was an understanding though, like, because when we talk about the Wailing Wall is up against the Al-Aqsa Mosque, isn't it? And they have that whole area.
But if you get to the Wailing Wall, you still outside of the compound.
Got it.
Now, most of the rabbis until today says that it's not allowed for Jews to get inside. But in the last 20 years, we find more and more rabbis who says it's allowed going inside. You have to go in a very specific path on the Temple Mount, because you don't want to go in a place where the temple was, and because it's not allowed. We're not pure enough to do so, and we see a growing group of Jews, Zionist, national Zionist groups, who see the Temple Mount as part of their agenda, their political agenda.
Right.
And they try to push the government to change the status quo and let more Jews get inside, and to give them more rights for praying, for traveling, for they want to sacrifice a goat during Pesach, they want to build a synagogue, all kind of groups. They're working in many directions. However, the status quo is still standing, meaning they didn't give them more time to go on. It's still about 3 or 4 hours a day, and until about 2 years ago, they didn't let them pray. Meaning, if you walk there as non-Muslim, you cannot say anything. I mean, you cannot pray because you will be arrested.
Right.
Today they let them do some prayers, and this is a point that worried a lot, put a lot of worry in the mind of Muslim in Jerusalem.
And this all happened as you pointed out, in the wake of a wave of violence from, I would say, both sides, the Israelis and the Palestinians. There had been knife attacks by Palestinians against Israelis. There have been Israeli attacks against the locations where the alleged attackers came from. It's like this back and forth. Personally, I don't know how anybody survives there. You know, when we see this, you seem really calm. You're in the middle of a storm, right? Are you worried about this exploding?
No, actually, Jerusalem is much more calm than people used to think about it. I mean, you can live. Jerusalem is a very big city, and you can live in different areas, and you will not feel anything changing. You know, in the end of the day, we had, like in the last week, we had some clashes in Temple Mount. We had few clashes in the old city around the Temple Mount, and that's it. Oh, we have one case of stone throwing on a bus, but few injured, not severe, and that's all. I mean,
So
it's not like you have violence all around it all day, terror attacks every
this
day.
isn't the same. This isn't the same level as when Ariel Sharon went there.
Of course not.
You're
And we
not
are not
expecting. You're not
Of
expecting
course not.
another intifada as a result of this, are you?
No, I'm not. No. I think
I mean, you talk to, I know, both the Israelis and the Palestinians. Is there a fear that is what is building up, or not?
no, I don't think we are on the edge of another intifada. I think the most interesting process that's going on in Jerusalem in the last few years, it's even on the opposite process. I mean, today, comparing to I don't know, decades or two decades before, more and more Palestinians and Israelis meet each other at work, at schools, at universities, at hospitals. They know each other much better. There is a process of what I have called the Israelization of East Jerusalem, meaning when Israel built the wall between East Jerusalem and the West Bank, the Palestinians in Jerusalem had to decide what to do with their life, because their life were connected to the Palestinian community in the West Bank. So they turned into the Israeli community of West Jerusalem. So what happened actually is that today more and more Palestinians know the Israelis better, and more Israelis know Palestinians better, and I think it's lower the flame of violence, and it's made the city better than it used to be. But on that background, we still have the huge problem of the Temple Mount and the sensitivity of the Palestinians especially, but also of the Israelis concerning this place. When the Palestinians feel that Israel trying to push them away from there, it can blow the city. It can rise the wave of violence very fast. And we see this year, we have a new government in Israel after many years of Prime Minister Netanyahu, and they try to avoid full-scale clashes. Like we had some clashes in Friday on the Temple Mount, but the police withdrew very fast and tried to let the Muslim go on and do the prayers of Ramadan, and they tried to avoid too much violence in Bab el-Amud, in Damascus Gate, where the Palestinian community had the meeting on the eve of Ramadan. I see some I see some steps from the police here in Jerusalem to try and to keep the city as calm as possible, and to try to pass this Ramadan and Passover without too much violence. It's working pretty much well until now.
I know it's interesting because this month we talk about how we have Ramadan, we have Easter, the two Easters, traditional Orthodox, and we have Passover all on top of each other. And you think, wow, that should bring everybody together, but it actually causes a little tension apparently, right?
No, it's a lot of tension, right? Because you have to understand, if you open the map of the holy places in Jerusalem, you see it's all in 200 meters radius, right? The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Western Wall, and Temple Mount. It's like it's on the same place, and all of them have huge events concerning those holidays, and it's very tense and well, it's very sensitive from all sides.
So would you say this wasn't an intended provocation? It wasn't intentional by the Israeli government to provoke this?
No, I don't think so. No. I know that many Palestinians and many Muslims feel that there is like a secret plan, a secret plan of the Israelis to conquer and to push the Muslims out of Temple Mount. But I see it mostly as a fake news. I mean, I wrote today in an article in Haaretz that the Israeli occupation of East Jerusalem is bad enough in so many ways that you don't have to lie about it.
Right.
You don't have to find other reasons to be angry or to find reason for fight against the occupation.
Right.
And I don't think that there is some kind of a plan from Israel, from the Israeli government, to change the status quo on Temple Mount. There is some groups, political, religious, mostly NGOs, who trying to push the Israeli government to change the status quo, but they are not the mainstream. They are not in the government, and all the security institutions in Israel, the IDF, the police, the Shin Bet, all of them agreed that Israel should be very careful doing any steps in Temple Mount in Al-Aqsa.
And then I noticed that the State Department, President Biden, sent Yael Lempert and Hadi Amar, who are the two Israeli-Palestinian deputies in the State Department focused on all that. They sent them out there to see what was going on. I know that Anthony Blinken called both Mahmoud Abbas and Yair Lapid to urge them to do what they could to bring tensions down. Have things quieted down since then? Since this past week? I know there was a protest plan.
Since Friday, things are pretty much quiet. But we had today a flag march of the right wings, the radical right wings in Israel, with a member of the Knesset, Itamar Ben-Gvir, from the very radical right-wing party, and they wanted to protest against the violence of the Palestinians, and they asked the police to march from West Jerusalem to East Jerusalem and to go through the Muslim quarter of the old city of Jerusalem, and the police didn't let them, and they blocked them on the way, and it's also raised the tension and the violence in Jerusalem today. There were a few hours of some kind of clashes between those protesters, those right-wing activists, and the police in the middle of Jerusalem. They didn't let them go into East Jerusalem. But for now, this evening also seems to be pretty quiet. Today is the last day that non-Muslim will allow to go into Temple Mount. So tomorrow morning, I guess there will be another day of tension and clashes in Temple Mount. But from Friday on, for 10 days, the last 10 days of Ramadan, the Temple Mount should be closed for non-Muslims. So I guess the tension will be lower.
So we shouldn't. We should expect that there might be an easing of tensions. Although a lot of people were injured, I know that there were Palestinians that were responding by throwing rocks at the protester, the Jewish group that was trying to come to the Temple Mount. There were a lot of videos, though, where I saw Israeli police beating people. I thought pretty harshly. is it unusual that the harshness can be that tough? I'm not trying to force you to take sides. I don't want you to do that, but
no, I have a very clear view on this topic. I think, as I said before, the heads of the Jerusalem police try this year, not last year. Last year they did everything wrong. Like they did actually a collective punishment to all Palestinians in East Jerusalem, day after day. This year they tried to divide between the majority of the Palestinians who came to Temple Mount or to Damascus Gate to pray or to celebrate the end of the feast of Ramadan, and the minority who came to clash and to throw stones on the police. However, but we saw again and again a few very hard videos of police using clubs, hitting people, hitting journalists, women, hitting a man just who stand with his son, hitting the father, and
that one went viral. That was all over.
It's terrible. I mean, I cannot be more criticized to the Jerusalem police about it, and I think they have to give some answers. They have to open investigations against those officers, not only because it makes no sense to treat this way to civilians, but also because it's put oil on the fire or on the flames, right? Yeah. And when it became viral, it's only a proof that
it
look
makes
what
it
Israel
worse.
do in Al-Aqsa. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and do you think, Nir, do you think that the fact that they did things differently this year as opposed to last year? Because I remember last year, as you point out, was much more violent. There's much more tension, much more fear about another intifada starting. But this year, is it because we have a new government in Jerusalem, in Israel, the Naftali government? I mean, he's kind of right wing too, but he's different from Netanyahu, isn't he?
Right. Yeah, I think part of the answer is of course Netanyahu, especially last year. If you remember, last year it was still the government on tail, but it was after the election. And Netanyahu needed to head a new coalition, and the common political understanding in Israel was that Netanyahu have an interest to rise the flame and to add like some more violence, because it will help him to raise the member of the Knesset and to build his coalition. Now, I don't know if Netanyahu really made anything to not careful enough intentionally, right? But we saw the police acting like brutally and without no sense. Like they blocked if you remember, they blocked the stairs that in Damascus Gate, not allowing people sitting there without no reason. I mean, it makes no sense, but make only violence there. So part of the answer, of course, is the government of Naftali Bennett, who have vital interest to keep things quiet as possible, because whenever there is any violence, any terror attacks, they get hit very strong from the right wing, from the Likud and Netanyahu. That's saying, well, you cannot trust them, they cannot keep Israel safe, and etc. So this is part of the question, part of the answer. The other part, I think, it's understanding in the police as a conclusion for what happened last year. The police made some thought about it, and they decided to take another path and to try to
the majority
to avoid the scene we had
inflaming this. Nir, listen, I just want to say how I appreciate you joining us and talking about it. I wish I had a 4-hour program so that we could talk about this more. Unfortunately, I don't. But is there? I know that people can go to Haaretz at Haaretz.com. I subscribe. I read that paper along with Arab News, which is the sponsor of our program, along with the U.S. Arab Radio Network. And I look forward to your writing on this. I thought it was very generous of you to take the time and talk to us about. I feel a little more comfortable about the future now after speaking with you, that maybe we will have a good remainder of the month for everybody.
Inshallah. Thank you.
All right. Inshallah. Thank you so much. Nir, listen, my guest, Nir Hasson, is a writer at Haaretz, covering Jerusalem. He's writing a PhD dissertation at Hebrew University on the Palestinian neighborhoods in East Jerusalem. He's also a researcher at the Truman Institute of the Hebrew University. Nir, again, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
All right. You have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Everybody, you're listening to the Ray Hanania Show here on WNZK AM 690, WDMV AM 700, WTOR AM 770. And you'll be able to hear this show Thursday in Chicago at 12 noon on WNWI AM 1080. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to shift gears, come back here to the States and look at an interesting law that was introduced by a legislator who I think really shows how important it is to reach out to everybody. It's somebody that I really thought we need to put a spotlight on, because what State Representative Cyril Nichols of the 32nd Illinois District has done is to show the richness of diversity in Illinois, and this could spread throughout the country. I'm Ray Hanania. When we come back, we'll talk with Illinois State Representative Cyril Nichols of the 32nd Illinois District right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you. At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
While we've been staying safe at home, scientists have been on a journey. The destination, a COVID-19 vaccine. This journey began decades ago with research into other coronaviruses. Scientists built from there with months of research and development, cooperation with other experts worldwide, and clinical trials on tens of thousands of volunteers of diverse race, age, and health status. They arrived at a safe, effective vaccine, and hundreds of thousands in Michigan have already been vaccinated. But the next step is ours. We need to get the vaccine when we can. Keep wearing masks correctly and taking precautions until we reach our destination, freedom from COVID-19 and getting back to the lives we love. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Imagine you're on a train track. Somewhere miles away, a train is headed your way. You can't see it yet, but it's coming. Slowly but surely. If you have prediabetes or you're at risk for type 2 diabetes, you may be on the wrong track, and diabetes could be heading your way. Bit by bit, the danger is getting closer and closer. So should you stay on the track you're on now or move to make a change and reduce your risk? If you have prediabetes or you're at risk for type 2 diabetes, you may qualify for the National Diabetes Prevention Program in your local community. This one-year program could be the ongoing support you need to put you on the right track. Not only did participants lose weight, they cut their risk of type 2 diabetes in half. Ready to get on board for a healthier future? Learn more about the National Diabetes Prevention Program and what else you can do to manage and prevent diabetes at michigan.gov/diabetes. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The Ray Hanania Show is brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News Newspaper, the Middle East's leading English language publication, with print and online editions in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, France, Japan, Pakistan, England, and the United States. Listen to live radio every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern in Detroit, Washington, D.C., New York, and Ontario, Canada. Or watch the live broadcast on Facebook.com/Arab News. The Ray Hanania Show is rebroadcast in Chicago at 12 noon on Thursday. For more information on the radio stations, live Facebook broadcast, and podcasts, visit ArabNews.com. And now, here's your host, columnist and U.S. Special Correspondent for Arab News, Ray Hanania.
And thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody listening. You got all those links, facebook.com/Arab News, to watch this live. We're in our second segment here at the Ray Hanania Show, brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News, April 20th, 2022. I think it was about a month ago, the president of the American Arab Chamber of Commerce, Hassan Nijm, called me and said, you have to read about this guy, State Representative Cyril Nichols of the 32nd District. He's introduced something that Arab Americans have been seeking for decades. I mean, for as long as I've been active, we've been trying to find a way to be equal to everybody else. And I think State Representative Cyril Nichols has actually done that for the first time for Arab Americans. Welcome to the program, Representative Nichols. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Hey, Ray, thank you for having me.
It's
an opportunity to come on your show.
It's a real pleasure to have you on. Tell us about this legislation that you've introduced. I think I understand it, but help the public, especially Arab Americans, to understand how this helps their community, but also helps the entire state, really, by doing what you're proposing.
Absolutely. So, when I took, when I was appointed to this position, and one of the first places I went was the day of prayer at DC Stadium. One of the things I said is that I'm your representative. I'm not only here to represent your voice, but I'm also here to make sure that we bring the proper respect to your community. And so as we went on this journey together, because everything we do in the 32nd District, we do together. I replaced former Representative Tapetti, and one of the things that I said is I don't want one side of the district to have things and the other side don't. So when I left that stadium that day, I said to myself that I'm going to make sure that the Arab community gets the respect that any other community wants, in the day-to-day operations in this country. So, I was approaching and saying, hey, listen, is it possible that you can look at making sure that we can get the minority status? And I said, well, yeah, let me look at it. Well, as you know, Ray, in Detroit, Michigan, one of the largest populations of the Arab community, they have this status.
Yes.
I actually researched and I pulled some articles down. I worked with my staff, and we realized that they had legislation in place. So we took that same legislation, and I said to my staff, okay, look at this, and let's see if this is what we're looking at. So I did. And then I sent it over to the Arab Business Chamber, and they looked at it, and I was like, listen, I'm going to support and represent you. And they said, this is what we're looking for. Now, Ray, we got to be honest, right? We got to be honest.
Yep.
Some people in the community may or may not want this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, listen, people come up to me and they say, oh, you're Arab. You know, black people look at me and say I'm white. White people look at me and say I'm black. So for Arabs, it's a little touchy situation then to be called a minority. But having covered politics for 45 years, I know that when the state recognizes a group as a minority in terms of set-asides and contracts, that is a big deal. That's saying to them that we're going to open the door the way I think the law currently recognizes blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, Asians, Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islanders, and women in this category. You're just adding Arab to that category, correct?
Well, absolutely. And again, I'm representing the voice of the Arab community. And so we have the legislation, and I'm working very, very diligently and going to file it. So that at this point, right, you just said it's contracts, is you know, let's be honest. Like when checking that box, you want to check ARAB, right? Like this is in my mind, it's already been done. I'm not doing something that's never been done, right? So that's my job, is to represent, you know, the Arab community and the black community, the white community, the Irish community. I'm representing the district. We have a very diverse district. And I don't have a problem doing it. And it's actually done. Now we're going to get it filed and keep it moving.
So basically, I think if I understand this properly, these individual groups that are identified in the legislation have been already identified for years. This goes back to the 60s in some areas of the U.S. I remember Harold Washington in the 80s made a big deal about this, bringing it to Chicago, wanting to help groups that have not traditionally gotten their share. Because I bet every ethnic group will say to you, I don't want you to treat me as a favorite. I don't want you to do something for me that you're not doing for other people. I just want you to treat me the same way you treat everybody else so we can have the same opportunity to get contracts. And I know that Arab businesses get very, very few contracts from the state of Illinois. They get very few appointments from the governor. We're not even on the U.S. Census. What you're doing, what you're doing in my mind is one of the biggest things that I've seen done to help the Arab American community in 45 years of covering politics. Since Harold Washington created the Human Relations Commission and included the Arab Advisory Commission, I put what you're doing on par with what he did. It was such a big thing what he did, and I think what you're doing is an important thing too. What's the status of that legislation now? What's the process?
Well, you know, as a representative, I sent it over to the chamber and that asked for it, and they're looking over it right now with their lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. And as of right now, they said it's a thumbs up. It's like it's ready to go. And so I'll be talking to a couple people the rest of this week, and then we'll file it. And then when we go back, it's my job to go down there and represent my district and say, hey, listen, this is what we would like to happen. And of course, the process after that, 60 people, 30 people, they agree and we get it done. And I don't see, this is not a bad thing. This is, okay, hey, listen, if you don't want to check the box, you don't have to, right? This is not a bad thing. It actually opens the door for a lot of services. It opens the door to be counted in the census, right? The right way, the proper way.
Right.
It opens the door for contract negotiations, now you can go MBWE. There's so many doors that will open with this simple legislation that's already been done in Michigan, right? It's already It's in largest population. It's already been done. So I really believe that I'm doing the will of the people, right? And that's what my job is. I want to thank you for having me on the show and just to talk about this, because I think some of our narratives are created.
Right.
And you know, if you're a respected voice in your community, you know, and it helps when Ray says, hey, listen, you know, I am you. Like, this is not something I just made up. I'm doing the will of the Arab community.
Yeah, you're not doing it as a favor or for political purposes.
Oh.
You're doing it, when I spoke to you, because you believe everybody should be treated equal.
Everybody.
And you've told me that you respect the diversity of your district.
Absolutely.
I think that one of the things, I mean, listen, I give you credit, though, because, you know, the Arab community is not the easiest community to work with. We got 10 different sides, always fighting among themselves. You know, we got 22 Arab countries. It's not like one race. We've got one race from 22 Arab countries. We have many differences of opinion. But individually, when I look past all those problems that we have, what can we do to help you get this passed as an Arab community? What can we do?
Well, of course, you know, in legislation, right? When you present something like my plant-based bill that I presented, so kids can have a choice, right? The choice. If you want to eat healthier or you want to eat what the system provides you, at least you have a choice. And at this point, this is a choice. I'm just offering again. I've learned this, Ray, in a short time in legislature, right? Give the choice. Because when you do a mandate, it's, you know, it has some other implications. And or if you ask for money in appropriations, this costs nothing, right? This costs nothing, and it gives you a choice. And then you allow people to live in this country like the creed of this country, right? Everybody has a shot. Everybody is respected, you know, regardless of culture, regardless of race. Everybody has an opportunity. And this actually gives you guys an opportunity. So to help, I think, you know, you know, just to say, hey, listen, you guys need to understand what's going on right now. You got to understand that, you know, this is a good thing in our community.
Right.
But if it's something that you might not agree with, you still have a choice.
A discussion.
You know, this is a choice.
Yeah, and look, I think probably the hardest thing for our community is we're often marginalized by mainstream, you know, the mainstream news media. The only time they look at us is when there's some violence in the Middle East. Yep. A reporter will call me and say, Ray, what's your reaction to the violence in Jerusalem? And I'll say, what do you think, that I represent something or that I have anything to do with that? Why don't you ask me about Arab Americans living in Chicago and what I think about them? How come they never call us? So when Hassan called me, and you know Hassan Nijm from the American Arab Chamber, he said, Ray, we got to help him get the word out, because it's not enough to talk to some people in the community. We need the entire community to be aware that you're doing this, because every individual, I think, can call a legislator and say, hey, are you co-sponsoring this? Are you supporting it?
They can.
What are you doing to help? So my assumption is that would be one way that the community can help you.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, Ray, come on. Like, you know, politics, right? Money. Some people may look at it like we may be losing a contract, right? And again, if you have legislators that in your community just doesn't live in my district, right? All over Chicago.
Right.
And they should be able to call the legislator and say, listen, we support this. We really want you to support Representative Nichols in his legislation. And we need to get it passed. Because I'm going to fight to get it passed. Right. Yeah. And you know as well as anybody, Ray, you've been around a long time. When that board, when they start hitting them buttons and I don't get 60, I can pull it and I can keep working, you know, so it doesn't fail. Right. And I'm going to work as hard as I worked on any other bill that I presented in the less than 1 year I've been in there. Less than 1 year, I've passed legislation. I voted on legislation. I authored legislation, right? And I did it from the voice of the people in the district. So it's not like me waking up saying, well, I'm going to do this. No, the people asked me, they said, listen, we would like to see this. We like to see the plant-based option. We would like to see people being able to go out to the grocery store and not have a mask on, right? Whatever it is. And that's my job to represent about 100,000+ constituents.
Well, the reason I think this interview with you is so important is because I think we're getting the word out. For most Arab Americans, this is in Illinois, this is the first time we've heard of this. And it's not your fault. It's our fault that we don't do a good enough job focusing in our own neighborhood here in the U.S. sometimes. We're always focused about the Middle East, and it's important. But your job is to represent locally, and our job is to work with you locally to make sure everybody is treated fairly. And I think they're going to do that. I was going to give a plug to the Arab American Democratic Club has their candidates brunch and forum May 15th at Nico's restaurant in Bridgeview. I think if you get a chance, you should come out there and talk about this. They'll have something like 400 people there. And they need to they won't just listen to me, but I think, seeing you, they need to see who you are and that you've done this, because like I said, this is a big deal. It's not small potatoes. And now we need to step up to the plate, right? We need to get people to support this. We need to get it passed. And as you point out, it's not like it's being unfair to people. There are hundreds of billions of dollars of contracts. And I think this legislation applies to about 10% that sets it aside for these minority groups that have been identified. And if Arabs are included in that, that's still a huge number for our community that has big food companies that have services that they could qualify to obtain some of those contracts to help them get them involved in the community.
And Ray, get jobs.
Yes.
They're set aside for jobs for minority groups. Resources for schools. It's not. This is great. So this is my job. I get emotional, right? So don't think something wrong with me. I just get emotional about serving people. This is all I've done all my life is serve people. Every job I had was a service job. Be it executive director of the YMCA, coordinator for the Chicago youth centers, you name it, every job. Worked at colleges, universities, student affairs, every job I ever had, including working at City College of Chicago or athletics. Like, I always been in the service industry, serve people, right? And as you know, even no matter what religion it is, we have to give of ourselves. That's the whole ideology behind everything. I have never seen a U-Haul behind a hearse, right? Well, you're on this planet, you have to give of yourself, and that's what we all should do, which has the big letter L in front of it, love. And why would I not want the Arab community to have a status that would help their children,
right?
Help their fathers and mothers. We all got the same issues, right? We all got issues going on. It ain't, it ain't only just South Side or West. We got the same issues when it comes to crime or drug abuse, whatever it may be. Everybody community, we got the same issues, but we want to make sure that you get services for that, right? Yeah. You get mental health services if you need it. Hospital care. Dollars are being divided for the people in these communities, especially with a minority status. So, and it's a reason for that, right? Because minority groups such as your group has been cut out of stuff, and it's not right. So that's why, I'm pushing the legislation forward, again, because I really, in my heart, I know it's the right thing to do.
Now, I hope I don't jam you up with the mayor of Chicago. I don't think she has the same attitude that you have. Maybe you can talk to her to get her to change her attitude. She shut down 150 Arab stores last summer and for 3 months, and it was terrible. And she wouldn't talk to us. Even if you and I disagreed, we should be able to talk to each other, shouldn't we? I mean, you want to hear our input, right? And do what the community feels is right.
This is the ideology about any transaction is communication. And sometimes, Ray, we're not going to agree on everything, right? 13.5 million people in the state of Illinois, 118 House of Representatives, right? It's a reason why we are in the positions we're in. We're representing people. Your interest may not be somebody else's interest, but if your interest is helping your community, feed your family, educate your children, put your people to work, then we have to dialogue. We have to talk to each other. We have to say, look, if you're going to if an action causes this reaction, then how do we make it better? And we can't do it without talking to each other. And I've said that time and time again, communication. You might not like what's being communicated, but at least we're talking. If we don't talk, man, that's not a good thing.
The basics that you just pointed out are things that we agree with 100%. And, when I try to talk to my community about politics, I explain to them there is no such thing as 100% on every issue. If you agree with somebody 75%, look at the good and don't let the bad stand in your way of progress. How can is there a website where people can follow up to get more information on what you're doing, Representative Nichols?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, what I'll do, I can send you all of that information, by the way.
Yes, that would be good. But I want people who are listening now, just if they want to get more information, I think there's what's that website for your legislative, where they can go to get more information.
You go to ilga.gov or repnichols.com.
Repnichols.com.
Yep.
Let's start with that. Make it simple. repnichols.com. All right, that sounds good. Representative Nichols, unfortunately we're out of time. I wish, like I said, one day I'll get a contract to have a 4-hour radio show every day in Chicago. Thanks to you, and I'm going to dedicate that show to you if we ever get it off the ground.
And I'll be happy to come on as you get.
I would love to have you on again. Please thank your staff for all the help that they gave to bring you here to do this interview. And I know that many people in the community, you can hear this tomorrow on 1080 AM at 12 noon. It's on Facebook. I will make sure to send you all the links. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Ray. Thank you so much for having me. All
right. And everybody out there, listen, thank you for listening to the live broadcast. Like I said, Chicago, you can hear it at 1080 AM at 12 noon on Thursday. We do the show every week live on Wednesday in Detroit, in Washington, D.C., in Ontario. And then we rebroadcast in Chicago on Thursday at 12 noon on WNWI AM 1080. I'm Ray Hanania. Thank you so much. Go to arabnews.com to get more information, or arabradio.us. I hope everybody has a great Ramadan, a great Passover, and Orthodox Easter coming up this Sunday. And remember, May 15, Sunday morning is the Arab American Democratic Club forum and brunch at Nico's Restaurant in Bridgey. Everybody, you have a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.